Hello there, you're listening to the Box Office Show. I'm Ryan Hill.
And I'm Dylan Johnson. Today we're going to talk about the box office numbers from last weekend and our box office predictions for this upcoming weekend.
We will also conclude the Month of Coppola by discussing the long awaited, highly anticipated finale to Francis Ford Coppola's legendary filmmaking career. Megalopolis is here.
And do you really think Megalopolis is his finale? Do you think he's really not going to make another movie ever again?
This
This is
man
it.
is 85 years old.
I know. I think it's unlikely, especially since he's now bankrupt as a result of Megalopolis. But I don't think he intended for this to be his final film.
He's not bankrupt. He still has a lot of money left over from the sale of his winery. However, I think we can put a little asterisk there. The finale of theatrically released films. I'm sure he'll still make some films, some movies. I just don't know that they'll ever get wide release again. And
Sure.
they're certainly not going to be on the scale of this. So this is like the big finale. But
Yeah.
he might have an epilogue to put on there. But I think it'll be much smaller scale. Again, 85. This is crazy. So
Yeah.
one way or another, it'll be the big finale that we remember his career by.
Indeed. Now we got some news to talk about, and looking at the talking points, it seems like it's all been tailored to me. It's been quite a week in news for movie lovers. First off, Daniel Day Lewis is coming out of retirement to be in his son's first ever movie. Isn't that crazy? I really thought he was done for good. I really thought nothing could bring him back. But of
Well,
course, the love of a son will bring a
his
legendary
family,
actor out of retirement to
his
bring a name. I
family
mean,
did
he's
it.
he's been in many of his wife's films. Did you know his wife is the daughter of Arthur Miller?
I did not.
It's Rebecca Miller. And they met when he was preparing to play John Proctor in the Crucible movie.
That's crazy.
So his former stepmother was technically Marilyn Monroe, in a
Wow,
way, if you do the relationship math there. Interesting one.
the
Are you excited to
connection.
see Daniel Day Lewis return to the big screen?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of
This is
course.
fantastic. I can't wait to see if he'll continue beyond just this one project. I imagine he will. Once he's back in the saddle, I'm sure it'll be hard for him to depart once again. So, yeah,
Perhaps Daniel Day Lewis can end his career with 4 Oscars, the only male actor to do so, if he were to do so.
that's true. So we will see. But yeah, it definitely gives him time. I mean, who knows? He could be in Tarantino's final film.
That would be wild.
If Coppola does make another film, maybe we'll go for that. Who knows? The possibilities are endless now with him joining the fray. So yeah, I'm very happy, very pleased about that. What pressure riding on his son though to be like, Dad, can you come out of retirement just for me? You, one of the greatest actors of all time.
Yeah, and if you look at the cast that's making up the rest of the movie, it's also kind of stacked. I forget who's in it, but it is a very good cast outside of just the return of Daniel Day Lewis.
Mm-hmm. So it'll either be a new hot filmmaker hitting the scene or a nepo baby tarnishing Daniel Day Lewis's return.
We'll see.
So yeah, we definitely shall see. In other news, Last of Us season 2, the trailer has dropped. Dylan, were you able to take a look at it?
Spoiler warning for the Last of Us video game and Last of Us television show coming up. Absolutely. And it seems they're just going full throttle Last of Us Part 2 in it. It looks like it's just the entire Part 2, or at least it looks like the first half of the Part 2 is going to be put in here. Like maybe they're building up to everything that happens in Seattle, maybe all of Seattle is season 3 because I didn't see any Seattle specific scenes. It was all the build up to everything that happens in Seattle in the second game. So I could see them splitting up the second game into 2 seasons and ending season 2 with Joel's death, which again was what I wanted them to do. And I'm really hoping they go for it because I would like to expand more time with Joel so that when we get to his death, it's the end of a piece of media rather than the beginning of it. And that way it kind of gives a better closure to his character. And then in season 3, we can focus on Ellie hunting down Abby and that sort of back and forth.
Yeah, you are gonna have to cut that out.
What?
You can't spoil that like that. Come on now.
I don't give a fuck. The game's been out for what?
It's a
6 years?
television show we're talking about. What are
I don't
you
give a
on about, bro?
fuck.
That's
I don't
absurd.
give a fuck. I will okay, I'll record the bit now and I'll cut around it. I will put spoiler warning for the Last of Us video game and Last of Us television show coming up. And I will clip that in before I say what I say because what I say is important.
I mean, sure. I'm just saying you got to give fair warning before
I will
you
give fair warning, okay?
drop a moment like that.
But what the fuck, man? Like, come on. Like,
What?
everybody knows Joel dies.
That's not true. There's a bunch of people that are exclusively just watching the television show. Not everyone's gamers.
Oh, you mean schmucks?
Please,
Schmucks.
non-gamer.
Old people and schmucks? What am I appealing to the olds now?
I think there's far more. I've talked with plenty of people that never played the game and never knew what was happening. So that,
Schmucks.
that experience should be preserved. They're not schmucks
They
just
are
because they haven't
schmucks.
played the same bloody games as you. I think you can't designate people as schmucks on the show, Dylan.
What the fuck? I think
Your
we've established
privileges,
time and time again that we both have schmuck giving privileges.
your privileges
We
have been
both give a lot
revoked.
of schmuck on this show.
Yeah,
And
but
in
your
return, we both act like schmucks at times
your
and call each other out
schmuck
for schmuckness.
is out of whack. Okay, I
Schmuck
am,
you, motherfucker.
I'm calling out your schmuckiness. That whole bit you just did was schmuck filled.
You're
So
making me do so much more work on the editing side now because I got to cut all this shit out. Schmuck you, man.
I mean, you did it. Okay, that was you. But to give
Don't say
you an
but.
olive branch, your favorite show or one of your favorite shows, Barry. We can talk about that. Bill Hader and Duffy Boudreaux wrote Barry. They are now working on a new HBO comedy series. Your thoughts?
I'm very, very excited. The one sentence description is a woman in a small town has a big secret revealed, which is exciting. It's been a long time since you get media where they give you just the bare minimum going into it. I'm so used to being given a trailer or plot synopsis where I'm just told fucking everything. Like The Wild Robot. I'm gonna go see it. I think I'll like it. But I watched the trailer. I know what happens in the whole fucking movie. Like the trailer tells me everything that happens in that fucking movie.
Dylan, that's a book. That's a children's book.
The Wild Robot
I
is a
can
book?
I can spoil it for you right now. Because who hasn't read The Wild Robot? Come on. It's been out for 8 years.
If you're doing this, that means I can't cut out the argument we just had. Are you gonna make me do more editing now, or are we just going to leave
You
the
have to
argument
keep the
in?
argument in. Again, it needs to be on the show
Schmuck
that
off.
your schmuck privileges have been revoked because they have.
Fuck you. I'm going full fuck you. My schmuck privileges have not been revoked. You're acting like a
Every
real schmuck right now.
every schmuck you invoke for the remainder of the month is illegal. So it needs to be known. Okay, it needs to
What
be
the
recorded.
fuck? We're gonna review Megalopolis, okay? I'm gonna be needed to be given like a lot of schmuck privileges for this, okay?
Well, that's true. Okay, so you get you get it for this episode, the remainder of it, but for the rest of the month,
Next week we're doing
you're
Joker
done.
too. Come on, man.
And hey, you shouldn't have done what you did here. You don't get to
Fuck
call
you.
out the
You are
schmucks.
not the king of schmuckness, okay? You do not get to decide who does and does not determine schmuckness, okay? This is not your calling,
And
all
yet,
right?
I just did. So there you go.
Where's
So you
Larry David
are
to call you a schmuck?
so you are excited for this new HBO series. Again, it's very early in development. I mean, that's why it gave you the
Yeah, they're just now
most
like
stripped
writing the
down logline
pilot,
ever.
yeah.
So, but yeah,
Still, it's exciting. It seems like a lot of fun. Duffy Boudreaux is known for writing on Barry and other shows like Big Mouth and Documentary Now, and he's an old childhood friend of Bill Hader from like their high school days in Oklahoma. So they're very in tune to one another, and I'm sure that they will come up with a very, very good and exciting show. And before that comes out, hopefully long before that comes out, I will get you to watch Barry, and we will finally do an episode on it because it's about
yes,
goddamn time. All
it's
right,
in the
buddy.
works. It's on the list. It is in the document. It will be done at some point. Don't you worry. Do you think this show will be an actual comedy, or will it be a dramedy turned straight drama like Barry?
I think Bill Hader is going to, if I had to guess, and I can't really guess. I'm gonna guess he's gonna go for more of just a straight drama, like the second two seasons of Barry, with bits of comedy in them, like the second two seasons of Barry, where it's just mostly a dramatic show. And I don't think he can help himself in terms of just putting something funny in there. He's very like Coen Brothers inspired, as many have pointed out to him, and that he's pointed out himself. And the Coen Brothers, even in their darkest stories, will still throw in like bits of like even No Country for Old Men has some comedy beats in there that are pretty funny. There's always something to laugh at. It's never just straight like intense drama quite so. Even like Fargo is incredibly funny at times. They have very good straight up comedies like Raising Arizona. So the Coen brothers are not strangers to that, and I don't think Bill Hader will ever be a stranger to that. So it'll be, if I had to guess, drama heavy with like little comedy nuggets in there sprinkled in, which is what I hope it is. I think that would be exciting to watch.
All right. Well, there you go. New thing to add to your watch list. All right. For the box office breakdown for September 27th to the 29th, Dylan, why don't you tell us who is number one?
Bro, The Wild Robot with 35.7 million. Isn't that insane? That is a huge opening.
Good
Way
for
more than
them.
both of us predicted.
Yeah, and it's been getting rave reviews, so we might see a lot of positive word of mouth, good holds for the Wild Robot in its near future. Beetlejuice with 16 million still hanging around in the top two.
Transformers 1 with 9.1 million.
Devara Part 1, 5.6 million.
Speak No Evil, 4.2 million.
Megalopolis, on its debut, 4 million.
Devastating.
Rough.
Absolutely devastating. Deadpool and Wolverine, 2.7 million.
Never Let Go, 2.2 million.
My Old Ass, 2.17 million.
And Howl's Moving Castle, 2.1 million, the 20th anniversary of that film.
And for our box office predictions for October 4th to the 6th, one big movie coming out, Joker Folie à Deux, the sequel to Joker from 2019, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, and once again directed by Todd Phillips. The original Joker made 96 million in its opening. Ryan, what do you think the sequel can do? This is a movie that is on my roster, and I am hoping it does very, very, very well. What do you think?
I'm thinking 50 million.
Wow, that's devastating to hear. I am hoping for the best here. I am rooting for it to shoot for the stars. I think it will also be lower than 96. I'm with you on that one. But I still think there's a lot of hype around it. It's got Harley Quinn. It's got Joaquin Phoenix coming back. The original Joker made an insane amount of money. I'm thinking Folie à Deux can do 65 to 70 million.
All right.
That's what I'm hoping for.
There we go. We will see, but definitely one that we will have to look closely at since it will have big ramifications for the box office draft. And speaking of special announcement, I am going to invoke the wildcard clause. I will be dropping a film from my roster and selecting a replacement
Which
right
one are you
here,
dropping?
right now.
What are you dropping right now?
So obviously Twisters, you know, domestically it delivered, it did what it needed to do, but internationally people just did not care
Nope.
for the star power of Glenn Powell and for tornadoes. And so it did not make enough money. I think it made around 300 mil, something like that.
Something's
So
disappointing, yeah.
yeah. So I am dropping Twisters from the roster. That was the one that I was hoping would have a Top Gun Maverick or Barbie type effect, a surprise out of nowhere, but alas, it did not.
Did not.
So I am looking towards the fall winter schedule, and unfortunately, I only see one film that seems like it has a guaranteed 500 mil in its future.
Mm-hmm.
And that film is none other than Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Wow. He's getting a superhero film on his roster. He did it.
Yep, unfortunately, the purity of my roster has been tainted by a superhero flick, but gotta do what you gotta do to try and win. So, yeah, Venom is joining the roster. Dylan, what are your thoughts on my selection?
I don't think it's a guaranteed 500, unfortunately. I think it's going to end up just shy of that, somewhere in the 400 something million dollar range, which is still good. I still think it's a better choice than Twisters. I still think you're going to make better money. I just don't think it is going to be enough to seal the deal. Even if Joker underperforms, I just don't think there's anything you can do to close the gap, my guy. I'm just killing it too much. I don't think Moana's gonna help, and I really don't think Mufasa's gonna do numbers.
I mean, Moana 2 will definitely help. It's just it needs support from Mufasa and from Venom, my
We'll see,
selection.
buddy.
So we will see. The big thing is it will release in China. The previous one was not able to get a release in China, but it did make 500 million. Now, obviously, the Chinese marketplace is much different than it used to be, especially pre-pandemic. However, there are a few staples that the Chinese audience still loves. Avatar is one of them, and Venom is the other. They go bananas for it. Again, it made more in China than it did here domestically, the very first Venom, which was a huge $800+ million hit. Well, this one gets 800 million? Probably not. But again, I think it will be able to get over 500 mil. 700 million is not out of the question. Honestly,
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for. Because if we just add, if it does what Venom 2 did, add China 150, 200 mil, that's 700 mil. I need it to match Dune Part 2, and then things will start to be looking up, at least more possible, especially if Moana 2 goes crazy. So, Venom 3, Let There Be Carnage, is now on my roster.
yeah, eh. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. You still have a lot of movies yet to come out on your roster that are going to come out at the end of the year. So we'll have to
Indeed.
just wait and see. It's still anybody's game, technically,
I mean, yes, but you've been very
but I'm pretty certain which way it's going to
scaling back the
go.
gloating, but yes. I mean, Joker is your final film, so
That's correct.
you're
My box office draft will be rounded out in a month, probably month-ish. We'll see.
mhm,
We'll see how far you have to go to beat me. We will have that final tally, that final crossing line you have to get to the finish
indeed.
line. We'll see. Now let's talk about Megalopolis,
Oh, yes.
Francis Ford Coppola's grand return to cinema after selling his winery and putting all of his money on the line, just about, and financing this $100-something million movie with a stacked cast, a film that he's been trying to get made for 30 plus years. Ryan, what was your viewing experience like? When did you see this movie? You've been waiting for this for so long. It was your number one anticipated movie of the year.
It was.
When did you see this movie?
I saw it this past week, earlier in the week, on a Tuesday at the Point Orlando IMAX
The
theater.
big one.
I went to the big old
The
IMAX.
Herculean IMAX. Jesus. That's where I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it's huge.
It truly is. It's absurd. And so, yeah, I went there and had to do it in order to get the best possible viewing experience. It was
Absolutely.
very late at night, and there was, I think, 5 people total in the theater.
That's a big
So,
theater to have just 5 people in it.
yeah.
That's really funny.
So, yeah, there was no hiding of whether or not people were going to walk out because again, there was only a few people. I didn't see any walkouts. Someone did leave during the middle of the film just to go to the bathroom, but it was a very odd thing to walk out too. So I thought they were just done, but no, they came back. Just had a little potty break. I, however, was glued to my seat because I wasn't going to miss this for anything.
Of course.
Again, Coppola's big return. Again, I'm thinking it's his big finale, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to see it in all its glory.
Of course.
And is this film a masterpiece? Is it a return to form? Is it going to get him more Oscars? Is it going to make sure that that winery, that he sold off, was the greatest investment he could ever have made? Did he save and restore cinema with this film? I do not think so.
Not even close, man. This was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my gosh, you're going
This
hardcore on
this
the
film is absolutely atrocious to me.
wow.
I
And
thought
well,
it
yeah, talk about
was
your viewing experience because these are fresh thoughts.
I just watched this 4 hours ago. I was in a very, very small theater with 5 other people, also had no walkouts. but I'm a little surprised that there were no walkouts because of how obscenely bad this movie is. I almost walked out halfway through because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Mm,
Oh my god, dude, this movie is bad. I went on Letterboxd afterward and I looked at our friends, like our mutual friends' reviews of it, and there
hmm.
are people who are giving it like 4 stars and are like saying like it's so bad, but I was so glued to the screen. Who are these motherfuckers? Why can't you just say something's bad? Why can't you just admit that it's not a good movie? Why?
Yeah,
What?
I'll
These are
say
people who
this.
I know that if I asked them to really tell me why they liked it, they wouldn't be able to do it because they just want to be contrarian and they want to say they like something that other people think is bad. This movie is just bad. It's not entertaining. It's not a fun time. It's incredibly tonally inconsistent. The dialogue is terrible. It makes no sense. And it says absolutely nothing about anything.
So there are some things I agree, some things I disagree with there. I say this is not a good movie, but it's not a bad time. I did not have a bad time watching it because it does go so insane, off the wall, so bonkers that
But it's not
it's
even
just
it's not even a good kind of insane bonkers like Dracula or something. Or like One from the Heart even better than this.
really. You
Like
don't think that this had more just like what is going on here? What could he possibly do next? How are we going to go on
not in a
another
good way though.
tangent,
It wasn't
non
like
sequitur?
wow, this is really crazy and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not like having a great time, but or I'm not making sense of it. But wow, this is like he's really going for it with the way he's shooting these things. Like it just is wildly tonally inconsistent. The settings never match up with each other, and it's incredible. It's like $100 million student film. Like it's just dog shit. None of it makes any sense. No thought was put into like the world building of it or what it's trying to say and what it's trying to mean. It's just meant to like look good at times, but then it's like spatially inconsistent with the way that it's shot and the way that it's edited, and the dialogue is jarringly bad. Go back to the club. Like what is happening, dude? The
Dude,
acting isn't even very good. Dustin Hoffman just gets toasted like
he gets
2/3 of
crushed
the way
by a
through the
pillar,
movie
bro. That was
in a
amazing. That's what I was going to
flashback.
bring up, where I was like, "What do you mean there aren't crazy things that are enjoyable?" Dustin Hoffman just randomly getting crushed when
How is
he's
that
leaving,
enjoyable?
and
How is that enjoyable?
he's like, "The lightning doesn't scare me, but the thunder does." Or something. It's like,
He
what?
says the thunder sure does scare the shit out of me. Dustin Hoffman had some good moments, but also, who is his character? Beats
uh,
me, beats
could not
you.
tell you.
Couldn't tell anybody. No idea who the fuck his character is or what he's doing in here or what he does at all in the movie. He does absolutely nothing. He's just Dustin Hoffman to be Dustin
I
Hoffman.
think it's supposed to be like a fixer or something
Yeah, he's
for
called the
the family.
fixer, but
Yeah.
like he also ends up donating like $100 million to the Virgin in the musical number scene.
Yeah.
Who donates $100 million to anything? Nobody.
Uh, Coppola to his own film
Yeah,
to
maybe like
create
over the course of
Megalopolis.
a lifetime they donate. I mean, the whole movie is just it's Coppola's way of in the Hearts of Darkness documentary. He says he has, or maybe not that documentary. It was another video I watched, but there's some interview with him, and he says he has two regrets in life, and one of them was not committing to doing the live editing thing with One from the Heart, and wishing he had like committed to doing that. And then the other regret was that he felt like he didn't leave cinema better off than when he was given it when he was younger. And I think this movie is supposed to be his way of like apologizing for not leaving off cinema in a better state and hoping that future generations can create a version of cinema that will stand the test of time and will push forward. I think that's what he's trying to say
Yeah,
here.
I think a thing you can see that points to that is Caesar and Cicero, although Cicero's real name being Franklin,
Francis.
being Francis. So yeah, I think in that dichotomy there of like he's both trying to be Caesar, the guy that's got this great ambitious vision for the future, but he's also trying to be the steward of the past and the traditions and things like that. So I think that is, yeah, it's definitely kind of there in the text. But what you
He
were going to
he
say?
boggles down all of that nuance with heavy-handed plot that I don't give a shit about. Did he kill his wife? Did he not kill his wife? Does his wife even fucking matter? Is Aubrey Plaza fucking John Voight? Aubrey Plaza is fucking Shia LaBeouf. I don't care about any of this. I don't care
Hmm.
about any of it at all. I know that Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf are supposed to represent like the studio system and him trying to like break away from that studio system and the reliance upon the money and whatnot. Like I get the analogy he's trying to make, but at the same time, he's saying that Caesar is destroying slums, like gentrifying New Rome to make a better future. And Shia LaBeouf, in a brief moment, is like saying, "No, these are people. We need to." Like he's destroying their homes, and obviously, like I guess Shia LaBeouf's character doesn't actually care about them, but everything he's saying is technically correct. Like I'm not
Mhm.
disagreeing that Caesar is destroying these people's homes in the effort of making Megalopolis and making that future. And obviously, the idea of Megalopolis is the Megalopolis movie itself. That he's like trying to create this film that will be the continuation of cinema, and ultimately, it just isn't. It's all just way too meta. Doesn't
Mhm.
understand itself. Tries to make you understand it, even though it doesn't get it, and is so full of weird little references to things that don't matter and like commentary on cancel culture and wokeness, and also it's just full of so much crap. It's just all pretentious crap that doesn't make any sense to anybody but Francis Coppola, who doesn't even probably give a shit about this stuff. He tried really hard to make a movie and it just fucking flops, man.
How dare you call his work pretentious when you know that's the worst
I know
thing?
it's the worst thing is what he doesn't want to be, but it is pretentious. It is. It's trying to say something but really saying nothing. And that's the definition of pretentiousness.
In a way, I think there's some self awareness there. You mentioned the tonal inconsistency. I mean, that's definitely one of the major issues throughout the entire film. However, there's a cheekiness that is present. Again, the John Voight stuff, especially towards the end with the. I mean, that scene is
No.
absurd and bonkers. But again, it's like what compels a man to put that into what would otherwise be this huge like philosophical piece that is him trying to both leave behind a legacy and inspire the next generation of, as you're saying, filmmakers, but just people in general, like caretakers of society, like massive aims there. And yet he includes John Voight saying, "What do you think of this boner here?" before he shoots Aubrey Plaza dead, and then
With
also
an
shoots,
with an arrow, a fucking
yeah, a bow and arrow, like
crossbow,
a small
a little
mini
crossbow
crossbow,
with a bolt. Shoots her with a bolt.
and then shoots Shia
Shia
LaBeouf
LaBeouf in the
twice in the
ass.
butt.
Shia
So it's
LaBeouf's
like,
going crazy in this movie.
dude, yeah, we'll get to that of like the performances, which are also yeah all over the place. Everyone's in a different movie, and so again that reflects on him and what was he trying to do. But I think he knows that there isn't just this layer of self seriousness over all of it. There's some moments that are funny and meant to be funny and meant to be absurd.
But they're not. But then there's moments that are meant to be serious that are just funny. Like when he takes off, the biggest laugh in my theater objectively was after he gets shot and he takes off his bandaging and he like turns into seven versions of himself and Aubrey Plaza drops to her knees.
Yeah,
We all just laughed so fucking, and it plays like it plays like guru music, like the sitar or something.
yes, that was insane. That was
like
truly
like
insane.
he's transcending and Aubrey Plaza's like crying looking at
Yeah.
him. Ridiculous.
Agreed. Yeah. Again, there's just I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where
It just can't be
along the
defended.
way, and especially this is such a long gestating project. You would think so much of this stuff would have been like more tightly wound together, and yet it's so messy. So many plot threads just come and go, disappear,
It's
make no
simultaneously
sense.
not taking itself seriously and taking itself way too seriously all at once. And you
Yeah,
just gotta pick a fucking side, man. Pick a lane. That's
indeed,
the whole job of being a filmmaker, being a director, is you just have to make choices. You have to commit to something. You have to commit to a style. You have to commit to a tone. You have to commit to a plot point. You have to commit to like a performance in a character. You have to commit to whether you want to take it seriously or not. And there's just no commitment anywhere in this movie whatsoever. It is changing constantly and is irritating to watch.
hmm
Nobody can defend that shit, man. Nobody.
I find a lot of what was in there creative at times and enjoyable at times, but yeah, overall, it does not come together as a total work.
It's his
So
worst
that's very
movie
rough.
that I've
I
seen.
don't know about that. Again, Youth Without Youth, I haven't seen, I suppose, the entirety of that film. But I would actually, yeah, wager it's stronger than some of those other films that we had seen in the month of Coppola, only because this is, once again, like his last hurrah, and he goes for it stylistically in a lot of different ways. I mean, we've talked about his overlays, his dissolves, his love of those things to death. There are plenty of them throughout this entire film. And some of them I thought were quite compelling. Again, just like the creative ideas that he has, or his ability to compose images that are just striking. I think a lot of that we still see in here. And so I can admire that ability of his has not waned over the
Also,
years.
Shia LaBeouf fucks his sisters. What is
Okay.
that?
They kept dropping that line in of like, oh, and by the way, they're related. Like an official newscaster is
Yeah, it's
reported
like,
to
and
be.
by the way, I think he's shacking up with his sisters. Who's announcing that? Why?
I don't know. They should have had Lawrence Fishburne announcing it, honestly, as one of the title cards. But yeah. So anyway, visually, at least, you must acknowledge, put aside the green screen, the artificial lighting in a lot of places. Yes, it looks kind of ugly.
It has
However, there's some
there
striking
are some
imagery.
shots. The satellite crashing and the shadow projections on the skyscrapers, which were in the trailers, that looks good.
Yeah, they're all in the trailers, which I'm like, well, I mean,
Disappointing.
good on whoever was the trailer making
The
person because
trailer is all of the best
I
shots in the
loved it.
movie.
Yeah,
So if you don't want to watch the movie but you want to see how they shot it, you can watch the trailer, and that's every single one of the good shots is in that trailer. That's
that
it.
is true. But again, that shot is incredible.
It
The
is. It's
people
very
like
good.
cowering in their
It is
shadows are projected on the skyscrapers. It's just amazing,
good way to
amazing
convey
edit.
that type. I think the use of the like vertical IMAX screen, splitting it into three separate screens for that tall IMAX theater. Even though I
Hmm.
watched it in standard, I imagine it was crazy in Regal Point when they did those two montages with the vertical squares or vertical
Yeah.
rectangles. I bet it looked crazy on the tall screen. I think that, although it reminds me of the Canada show at Epcot, they do the exact same fucking thing. Even
Uh-huh.
though it reminds me of that, or of Soren, they also do it in Soren. I think it reminds me of like a ride. I still think it is
Even
a
SeaWorld
creative
as well.
idea. Yeah, I think it's a creative idea, and I think it is something that I never see in movies. I don't often see split screens like that, and they do it in Elvis too, in a more '70s creative way. I think it's something that I think should come back for more stylistic films because I do enjoy like split screen, multiple stories being told at once kind of thing, and I think those montages do work well until he starts bringing back the story into it. At which point, I don't give a fuck.
Right. But yeah, I thought those as well were pretty like inventive and everything like that. Stuff I hadn't seen before. I hope it wasn't AI creating some of those images in that one montage of just like all the architectural
Yeah,
blueprints and things
yeah,
like
I
that
hope
that are
so
getting
too.
rendered out.
Because I thought that as well. I was like, who did all these drawings? They deserve all the credit and praise of this movie. And if it was AI, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Because that's so fucked. There's no way, though, to get that many AI drawings that look all the same, right?
I
Maybe the first
don't
one was
know.
AI and they based the rest of them off of it. I don't know. I just hope to fucking God not.
Probably the reverse would be more likely if they just fed it one particular drawing and then AI pumps out the rest. But
Okay, that makes more sense too, yeah.
yeah, either way, it was compelling. But I remember that in the trailer too, and I was like, oh, like that's very nice. I haven't seen like something like that of the multiple split screen, the triptych stuff. Um, but that was a concern I had. And there is AI, we'll get to that in this film. So it's something on Coppola's mind. It seems like so maybe he used it as a tool for this film. But then in one of those other montages, after he had gotten shot, and we're learning more about his wife that had died, and there's a child, and all this, the fetus that we see, which was a rough image, but the way that it reveals itself to be just these four different figures that are body painted, essentially, to have created that image.
That's a cool one. That's a cool one.
That was really cool, like surprising, caught me off guard there. So yeah, it's great. The hand grabbing the moon.
I thought that was rough.
The execution of it is rough, but again, conceptually, I think it
I think the idea works, and I think
great
even
idea.
looking at it works. I think the immediate follow-up scene of Giancarlo Esposito describing his dream as a hand reaching out for the moon, I felt like it was too heavy-handed to include both. I think if they had just shown the hand reaching for the moon and then had him talking about something else, it would have been fine. Or if they had just had him talk about the hand reaching for the moon and not shown the graphic of just a guy whose hand is painted white grabbing a white ball, I think that would have worked because the line itself of saying he had a nightmare where he was staring at the moon and a hand reached out and took it, I think is a cool little piece of dialogue that would have worked better had the visual not been there to accompany it and make it seem a little more ridiculous.
Yeah.
Once again, just totally inconsistent.
No arguments there. And then there was one more, just classic shot. It was Fishburne in the car. You see the rain droplets on the window, out of focus, and he's in focus there. And that looked great. And I was like,
Sure.
all right, great
Why did they
stuff.
get married in the car? Is it just because that's the only place Lawrence Fishburne can go?
I beats me, man. No idea. Truly none. But yeah, so when when in the film did you start thinking, oh no? Because obviously it was impossible not to go in this with
Hmm.
some expectations of like, okay, it's very mixed. It's been since its debut at the Cannes Film Festival and everything. It's
Hmm.
been a lot of people saying they love it, other people saying they absolutely hate it, thought it was atrocious. So going in, I mean, me as well. I was like, all right, like don't do these bad scenes or bad dialogue,
Hmm.
stuff like that. That's going to make me think that the rumors were true, that it's a
Yeah.
disaster. So when in the film did you come to the revelation that, oh yeah, they were right, the critics were right,
Yeah.
we're bashing the film?
So first scene is him on top of the skyscraper, the Chrysler, not the Chrysler building. What is it? The Chrysler
It
building?
is a
It
Chrysler
is the
building, yeah.
Chrysler building. Him on top of the Chrysler building. He stops time for whatever reason. He like bounces out, or he bounces out, then stops time, then pulls himself back. And I'm thinking this is interesting. I knew this happened. It's in the trailer. It's just
Hmm.
a little bizarre choice that he can stop time for whatever reason. Maybe it's like metaphorical. Maybe it's not
Which
real.
about that.
Yeah.
So going through his filmography, it was great because now I have a better understanding of why he was like, yeah, let's just give this main character powers for some reason, like the ability to stop time. But Youth Without Youth does the same thing. Again, him being
Hmm.
psychic. But even just the idea of him going backwards in aging. He was a 7-year-old man, then now he's got the body of a 40 year
Yeah.
old man, but still has the mind of a 7-year old. And then Jack, the mind of a kid, body of an older person. And then Dracula, even. You have essentially a guy who's like immortal. Again, still don't fully understand the rules on everything there, but however, he's able to live a long time, but is still obsessed with this like one particular thing that he's focused on.
Hmm.
So, like a lot of these movies,
Yeah.
Coppola is just thinking about time, obsessed with time, and particularly people that want to have more time and be able to utilize what that means
Yeah.
for whatever their purposes are. In this case, it's him trying to create Megalopolis. So it's
Yeah.
just
I
a
think.
fascinating thing to see play out here in his big final work,
Yeah.
Megalopolis, and seeing the sprinkles of it in his prior works that we were able to see and talk about.
I think in this movie specifically, his manipulation of time has to do with like a metaphor and analogy towards the ability to control time in the filmmaking process. And that as he's making movies, specifically as he's making Megalopolis, which this whole movie is just a meta commentary about making the movie itself and like the future of cinema. Uh, I think he's able to control time in the sense that he's like he's recontextualizing his whole career in the form of Caesar, and then like also comparing himself to Cicero, which is a whole smaller thing, but he's comparing himself in the sense that he's this great figure who's misunderstood, but who is like his early work is great, like like Everybody Loves Me was the Nobel
Nobel
Prize, pushes his
Prize, yeah.
Oscars, discovers these great things. His ability to just control time makes him so all powerful. His ability to manipulate time in the filmmaking world, and then he, of course, has that career drop off. He can't control time anymore. It's supposed to be his slump years. He's not doing well. He's critically shit upon. The people don't love him anymore. And then he's supposed to come back at the end, and Megalopolis is supposed to be this great return to form, which it just isn't. Which is why it's so sad, because had it been, it would have been a great analogy, but it just doesn't stick that landing. But anyway, he has these time powers. The second scene is we're in the club
In the club.
with Natalie Emanuel and Shia LaBeouf's incestuous sisters, who he like licks in the club. And at that point, we just think Shia LaBeouf's crazy, and then we find out much later, like a couple scenes later, that they're siblings, and you go, "Oh, wait, what? What? That what? No, he was just licking them in the scene earlier. That can't be true. No,
Mhm.
this can't be possible." But the club scene, I thought it was uh, I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was poor execution for Coppola. I think he could have done better. I think in terms of like a party club scene, it could have been crazier and it could have been more jarring to see. It just felt very cut and dry. It felt like it was on a set. It felt like they were actors. It didn't feel really immersed in the world. And then you
Mm-hmm.
go out on the street, and Natalie Emanuel gets taken in the car to go fuck off somewhere else, to go to her father who's calling her or something. And at this point, I think I'm digging the combination of like the Rome aesthetics with actual modern day New York. I think I understand that comparison of Coppola's ancestry being Italian and his upbringing and the future of New York. The combination of those two worlds, I think they do blend well thematically, and I think it works stylistically. I think the dress and like the way that they appear and the way that the settings are done, I think it works whole-handedly. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think they commit to I don't think they commit enough to making it more of a like stylized world. I think they make it feel too much like the real world, which I think is a mistake because the way that it's depicted makes it seem so far distant from our world that the acting themselves are so committed to just being more grounded like it is in our real world that it becomes inconsistent in that regard. Like they talk just like normal fucking guys, just fucking off, like you and me, just chatting it up.
Mm-hmm.
But they're dressed like Romans in like upscale New York. So it
Yeah.
just it just doesn't fit quite as well. And then they go to the destruction scene, and I think the way they frame Adam Driver, where he's wearing the hat and he's sitting at the table and he's drawing things, and he's framed by all the bodies behind him within the frame, like doing that little mini frame in a frame that
That
Coppola
was
always
nice.
does. That works really well. The zoom in on him works really well. And then they stop time again, and that's when it becomes clear that this is actually a power he can use, and it's not like a metaphor or it's not an analogy in any way. It's not theoretical. It is like in the story world of the movie. This is a real ability that this character has. And it starts to lose me a little bit because I'm like, they're going to have to explain this at some point for it to really make sense.
Yeah.
Because right now he's doing something completely abnormal that doesn't, like, even in Youth Without Youth, if he does something abnormal, they explain it right away. It just doesn't, it's not always a great explanation, but there is an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
They don't explain it right away. He drives off. I think the next scene is they're in the like the model of New York, and you're meeting all the characters, like they're all coming together, so you can get that introduction.
Yep.
And that's where it goes off the rails, bro. That's where
Agreed.
I fucking lose it.
That was
I'm
the
like,
one where I
what
was
the
like,
fuck is this?
oh no, because yeah, there's so much going on. There's so many characters there. I think conceptually, like the idea of them all meeting on this like scaffolding, and they're looking down at the little models and deciding what's going to be the direction of the city and which philosophy is essentially going to drive that forward. Like that's all great in theory and then set
Mhm.
up, but this is where truly just like the execution of it, which all comes down to like Coppola and both his ability to compose things and direct his actors. It all gets away from him because I just noticed like many times we're getting these odd reactions of people that didn't really like there's nothing significant in the dialogue for us to cut to a reaction shot from this particular person, or we're on somebody who does have dialogue, they're speaking currently on screen, but then they're like shifting away from the camera and we're still just lingering on them, which is like something he had done way
It's a lot
back
of
in the
shots
day
on
with
John Voight just
the
standing
rain
there.
people. But yeah, just like shots of people just standing there, and I was like, we like I just think he didn't like he ran out of time at this particular location or on set, or he just ran out of days, or more likely he just wasn't able to get all the cast there together. So he just has these random isolated singles of reaction shots of these characters reacting to things that aren't really react worthy. And it just doesn't like come together. Again, I don't know that there was one like major compelling wide shot and all of that to establish
Yeah.
things.
But on
Then you
top of
have
it all,
Driver doing Shakespeare out of
yeah.
nowhere, the entire like to be or not to be thing. I'm just like,
On top
what
of
is
it all,
going
they're
on?
just saying a whole lot of nothing. They're not even really talking about what they're trying to do with the city. So it's still not very clear what anybody's motivations are or what the plot really is or what's going on. We know
Mm-hmm.
so little about everybody. We know that Caesar may have killed his wife and that he won a Nobel Prize and invented something to get him the Nobel Prize. We know that Cicero is the mayor and people boo him everywhere he fucking goes. And we know that Shia LaBeouf is the grandson of John Voight, and John Voight owns a bank. And then Dustin Hoffman is just there. And Jason Schwartzman is also kind of just there. He's the aide to the mayor, but he's also just kind of there.
Hmm.
I just don't understand a lot of people's characters, why they're even necessary. They're just completely unnecessary. You cut Dustin Hoffman out, it's the same movie. You cut Jason Schwartzman out, it's the same fucking movie.
Very true. Very true.
They just don't do anything. You honestly, you can cut Talia Shire out as Caesar's mother, and you lose like maybe a scene and a half, and it's still the same fucking movie.
Yeah, I mean that's where it really becomes an issue too, because those are things that are meant to be characterizing these people and making us attached to them emotionally and understands more of who they are, and then also hopefully, like in the ideal world, their philosophies and their ideas, why they feel the way they do about the city and what direction they want to take it in. Hopefully, some of that is originating from their personal lives and what has happened to them in the past and what's going on currently with them. So we get the mother, we get that wife subplot for Caesar, and then of course we get the romance, like the pseudo forbidden romance type of thing of his mortal enemy, the daughter he is now getting with. And so all of that is there, and it's like there's
Yeah.
dramatic potential there. There's definitely the building blocks for a meaningful backstory, but it's just not really well rendered. None of it was really interesting. I definitely wasn't like on that front of like feeling sad or sympathetic for Caesar with those things. Like it just didn't really come across. There were some things I think with the Adam Driver in the scenes with the mother. I think there were some good like moments there that he had undoubtedly, but for the most part, I was just not buying into like the interior, personal, emotional worlds of the characters, which is tough since so much of their again philosophizing and ideas and whatnot weren't always the best. I mean, I think it's telling that like the Marcus Aurelius when they quoted him back to back 3 times, that was some of the times I was most intellectually stimulated.
But
That's
even
just
that's like,
characters quoting.
you're just fucking saying, like, the whole movie, Caesar and Cicero are so close to the same opinion that I don't even fucking care that they're against each
That's the
other.
problem too. Yeah, what is Cicero? I was like, what why are
What
they
is
at
your hang
odds?
up?
Like, what
What do
is
you,
the issue?
like, you both just want what, you just both want what is right for the city, and you can both get your way. What the fuck is the fucking problem? Like, why are you beefing so much? Why do you hate him so much that you framed him for his wife's murder and are begging him not to
Crazy.
marry your daughter?
Yeah.
You hate him that fucking much? Why?
Yeah, and they needed again. Clearly, Cicero is supposed to be like, oh, the old guard and keeping to the traditions, and maybe also being selfish and corrupt and stuff like that. And obviously, him trying to frame Caesar for killing his wife, which he didn't do, is example of corruption. But it's like before that, like what are the things that he's doing that are bad and directly harming the city? Like I just didn't get a full grasp
Yeah, people just
on
boo
that.
the shit out of him and you don't really know why.
Yeah.
I just don't get it, man. I don't get any of it. I just think it's so fucking atrocious.
What did you think of the? So I will say the wife subplot I think worked. Ultimately, the little cat and mouse thing of Julia is tailing Caesar,
No,
and
dumb.
Shia LaBeouf is tailing the both
Dumb.
of them. It just wasn't well done. Like you clearly see, there was just never a moment where Shia LaBeouf was actually like across the street from either of them.
Yeah.
It was just
What, how the
alone in the
fuck is he?
car
There's a
looking.
part where his camera is focused on him in the reflection of the lens in like a rear window sort of way. Both of them are in that frame, but they're both in separate cars. How the fuck are you? It doesn't fucking make sense. And there's no real cross section where you're actually looking from his car to their car. Like the way it's shot is just so atrocious.
Yeah, it wasn't
There's
the best
no
there for
clarity in
himself
it
and
whatsoever.
the geography of it. But when they're going through the decrepit, dilapidated part of the city, and the statues
I don't give a
start
shit about that
falling,
either.
crumbling down, I thought that was great.
I don't
It
give a
was
shit
in the
about that.
trailer as well, so
Yeah.
another one of those moments.
It's once again just not committing to a style or a tone because that sort of metaphor using actual physical depictions of like injustice like that is never once again used throughout the movie. So I just don't understand the lack of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
You're just doing it for a scene, just for shits and giggles because you think it'll be cool. Fucking commit. Commit to doing it. Do it
I mean,
more.
out of other things, they're hanging from like the girders that are being suspended by nothing, like the sky later on. Again, when they can do the stop time powers. So, I mean, there's elements too of that. But
Dumb.
you're right, nothing where it's quite so like
But
using
then
Lady
they'll
Justice
shoot things
and
like that, and then they'll shoot just like a scene in Central Park, like normal Central Park. What the
true.
fuck? They did whole long sequences where you're in the Megalopolis bit of the city where it is like beautiful and like crazy details of CGI and these like flowing streets and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And then it'll cut to like a New York alley. They're just standing in the alley of New York. What the
Hmm.
fuck?
I mean, that's what he's saying. You know, the great pure future, the fantasy of
No.
it, together with the reality, the grim
Inconsistent. It's
reality.
inconsistent.
What did you think of the whole Colosseum sequence? What
There's
was
so
going
much
on
that
there?
happens in the sequence. It's
There really is a
all
lot.
bad. It's all so bad. Shia LaBeouf, first off, balls to the wall, bro.
He's going crazy. You're
He
telling me
went
you weren't
for it, bro.
entertained by that of this man just full
I think
sending?
he's the only one of these actors who really knew what movie he was in. I think he's the only one that fits in this movie as opposed
Not
to all the
Aubrey
other
Plaza. You
characters.
don't think she's in there as well?
I think she has times where she slips up and isn't quite in the same movie as the rest of the actors. I just feel like she was having fun with it, and I think her character was just a little too frustrating to watch.
Mm,
And I think she just doesn't fit quite because she's like the media. It's like this is what the media does. They misconstrue things to manipulate you. She's the media. She's supposed to be like what critics were to Coppola, just like tearing her down, like the feeling of using the news to spread lies and whatnot for their own
hmm.
gain is what she's supposed to represent, and she's just too cartoonish about it. Even like her interviews she does with John Voight is just balls to the wall. The in-world interviews with John Voight's character, where she's just like cursing and saying "fuck it, let's ask the real fucking questions."
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't match. It doesn't make sense.
No, I think there were
Also, I did
there were
not
some parts where it
expect.
wasn't great, but I think for the most part, her and Shia LaBeouf, I think, are on that wavelength of just absurd,
I
like
think she's
making yourself
close. I think
part.
Shia LaBeouf is the only one that truly understands what he's doing here. I
Mm.
thought it was crazy to see John Voight just grab her ass. That was insane. There's just a
Mhm.
lot of weird things in this movie. I think the dress that the one girl wears that's invisible, it's made with the material that he invented, which still doesn't make any fucking sense to me. I don't understand.
Megalon,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
understand anything about the fucking material. But I thought the idea of having like a see-through dress was really cool, and the way they shot it was really well done. I just don't
yeah.
understand what the fuck Megalon is. They never explain it.
No,
Is it
they
a
never
building material?
do.
Is it a magical
I
substance?
was
Is it a
wondering
dress
where it came
fabric?
from, and I thought it was gonna be like the wife somehow, like her death, or at one point when they had the fetus reveal, if she was carrying a child, I was like, oh no,
The child
it's the
was
baby.
Megalon.
Yeah.
I just
But yeah,
don't. I don't get it. I don't
it's
fucking
just not really meant
understand.
to be. Again, it's they even say Megalopolis a fable. Like he's trying to just lean into like, don't think too hard about it. These are just shortcuts for us to be able to talk about like these big
Yeah,
ideas and whatnot.
they're stand-ins for his own personal story.
Yeah,
That's not supposed to make sense, which is unfortunate because it should make sense. But also, you have the music sequence where Grace Vanderwall sings with like a bunch of versions of herself.
is it Grace Vanderwall or Jackie Ivanka? I thought it was.
It's Grace Vanderwall. What are you talking about?
I don't know. What are
I'm
you
talking
doing?
about the girl on the moon,
The girl in the
the
movie. Yeah, yeah,
virgin.
yeah. Yeah, keep going. Keep talking.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why the society is promoting virginity and why it's something people have to bid on, and why they're bidding so much goddamn money to the pursuit of purity and virginity and whatnot. I don't understand why it's. I guess it's supposed to be like attacking the cancel culture movement of like trying to expose Adam Driver's character for doing something illicit, and then they make us sit for like 10 minutes of the movie thinking that maybe he had sex with an underage girl and he's supposed to be the hero of the movie, and you're like, what are you trying to say? And then you find out she's actually 23, and also the video was deep faked. It just feels like attacking cancel culture of like, you assumed too quickly that he was a bad person. But like if you see a video of a celebrity having sex with a girl that you thought was 16, is it really, is there that much you have to like? Obviously if you found out later that she was actually 23 and it was a deepfake video, of course you would pedal back your statements. But in that moment, I don't think it's wrong to think that Adam Driver's character is a bad person, because I thought he was a bad person for what he had done in the video. Finding out that the character is supposed to be 16 and then finding out later. Also, like, if I was Natalie Emanuel, like, they don't have a scene where Natalie Emanuel sits with Adam Driver and he like explains his side, which convinces her to dig deeper to find the evidence. She just goes, oh, we must assume that this girl, that something about this video is wrong. Let's go prove that he's right, even though there's no evidence that he is right, and it seems like he did a really bad fucking thing. And then when they do find the evidence that she's 23, they call her a slut. What the fuck? And
Yeah, I mean,
then it wasn't even her; it was a deep faked video.
I don't know
What is the
why
commentary on that?
that was the
What
thing
does it
there.
mean?
You could look at again the female roles in this film, and doesn't look great for Coppola.
It looks pretty
So,
fucking bad, dude.
especially in light of this being dedicated to his wife who had just passed away earlier
Yeah.
this year, unfortunately. Um, Not
And
great. I
then
mean,
the
a
only
lot of
other time
his
Grace
roles with
Vanderwall
women
shows
are
up
not great.
is later on when they describe that her career is over because she's no longer the virgin teen idol. She is now like the heavy hardcore pop punk sort of metal teen like sex appeal sort of character. They
Yeah,
just throw it in there for fun. What is
they do.
they have the headline that's teen birth rates rise to alarming heights.
Yeah.
They have like the slam headlines like Fox News type headlines. What
Hmm.
is that? What is the commentary? What does it mean?
Exactly. Again, that's what I put in here. I was like, is Coppola concerned? Has he been following like Disney stars and like the trajectory they take? Of again, they're supposed to be very like pure and again Disney friendly, kid friendly, and then you see with Miley Cyrus as a big example of they just go to the complete other side of the spectrum and doing drugs, alcohol, singing about
What
sex,
does that
and
have anything
twerking
to do
on
with
having kids.
fucking anything, dude?
So yeah, that was a wild thing. However, I will say the like this sequence, the idea of him putting it in there is very compelling to me for two reasons. One,
Oh
what you just
god.
pointed out there of like, oh, if we saw the video of it, why wouldn't we just automatically knee jerk be like, yeah, he's a terrible person because you see with your own eyes. I think like it isn't a terrible thing that he's bringing up of deepfake technology, AI. It's getting really good. Like at the moment, it's still like absurd. Have you seen the videos of like Gordon Ramsay and Will Smith
I've seen the Will
going
Smith
down the
eating
spaghetti
spaghetti.
scene?
Yeah, I've seen Will Smith eating spaghetti. That shit's
Absurd stuff like
crazy.
that.
This
Um,
shit's good. Nom, 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 nom.
so you can still tell with that stuff,
Yes.
but it's getting again, it's going to get harder and harder. There's going to be a point where it becomes almost indistinguishable, and that's, I mean, with this election currently, there's already been uh, accusations which are absurd, but like, oh, crowd sizes and stuff are getting manipulated by
Yeah. You can make AI produce a video that is so realistic that if you like lowered the resolution of it to make it look like it was shot on a shittier camera, it would just look like a real video.
yeah, it might go through even with, I mean, yeah, even right now with the crisis in North Carolina and everything and the disaster response, like there are AI images that are getting passed around, and it's like even after people get told, hey, this is like an AI image, they double down and they say, well, it's a representation of what people are actually going through, so I'm going to leave it up and I'm going to say like this is actual reality. And so even though that's not quite a one-to-one thing here,
Yeah,
at a
I just
certain
don't think
point,
they hammer
deepfake
home.
technology, I think, can like get to the point where you're going to see people doing compromising things, committing crimes,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and it'll be hard to tell the truth. And
I
that's
just don't
that's
think they
frightening.
commit to that point
Oh yeah, they dropped that
hardly.
subplot within like 10 minutes. Again, he just gets out of jail, and that was
Yeah.
that. And
Which
also,
he
it was
should. I mean, if
weird.
you prove that it's wrong, of course he's going to get out of
Well,
jail.
yeah, but
He's
then it's just like
obviously innocent.
it never comes up later again, or like that idea of like, oh, AI
It's just
and
it is a
deepfake.
commentary on cancel culture at the same time, which I don't
It is.
understand. Like I don't understand what he's trying to say about it, other than the deepfake stuff, which is like the smallest part of the commentary that he's making.
Yeah, but I think again that particular part that I'm highlighting there, I think is
Like
just
the
a
thing that he
worthwhile thing
gets,
to bring
like
up.
deepfake is just a thing they throw out there at the very end. Like it's not actually them in the video. The big thing that gets him out of jail is that she's actually 23 and not 16, and it's like you should have believed him. See,
Yeah,
you
I
should
thought
have
that was
believed
weird
that. And I
that
was
that
like,
was their approach of like we'll prove it wrong because she was actually this age, and I was like, well,
yeah,
thought
that
he was under
slut.
the assumption that she was 16. If he
And it
had no
like
other way of telling,
destroys her fucking life too.
yeah, which is
What the
terrible.
fuck?
That's awful. But again, I think that could be saying like again how our society treating people like that, put them on a pedestal again, like all this pressure for them to be clean and again like literally a virgin, pure, everything
Again,
like that of just the clean image that they're meant to be presenting there. And then
this
what
whole
happens when they get
thing could
turned
have been
around?
fine had it just been like he doesn't get arrested, it is a video, it turns out to be deepfake. You can make the commentary on being deepfake. You just don't have to include the 16-year-old part. That part is just unnecessary because it could still mess up her image, and you get that point of the pressure of being a like teen pop sensation or like a young pop sensation and wanting to be yourself and not worry about the pressure of being a role model, as well as the point about deepfake technology and how it can
Right.
construe
They need that
what
though if they
you're
want him in
seeing.
jail. If the whole idea is he's getting
But
like
he's
imprisoned for it.
barely in jail. He's like out in 2 scenes.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
doesn't
granted,
fucking matter that
but
he's in prison.
if that was the plot point of like, oh, he's getting targeted and he's gonna get thrown in jail for this action, I mean, they would have needed it to be an illegal thing because just in the fair isn't gonna throw him behind bars.
But he doesn't
Um,
need to go to jail.
Agreed. The second thing that was compelling for this, which I think I actually do know where your answer will be in it, does kind of make sense since Coppola has, with this movie, turns out, been, accused of some bad behavior. So you've been saying that all of this is just a meta reflection of Coppola and himself, his career, and his hope for film
Man,
itself.
where you going for this? Where you going with this?
I'm saying that I agree with that. I think it works on that level, but my interpretation is it's a little more zoomed out than that. Because I think he is just thinking of society at large. Like when you're talking about New
Sure.
Rome, like that tying back to his Italian ancestry and whatever, I think it's just a reflection of like Rome being the most famous empire in history that has crumbled and collapsed. America now
Sure.
being that empire and that being the one connection. And so he's just trying to create that as like a warning. And also Roman aesthetics are just cool.
Okay.
So that's why he incorporated that. The we talked about the Caesar and Cicero stuff of like them being at odds here. But there's those lines that he has later in the film of what is a utopia? If we have a dialogue, that basically is a utopia, like just generating those ideas, having a place to converse about them. So I
But I
think
think
that
that's also a commentary on filmmaking is that his utopia of cinema is a world where ideas are discussed and not just produced for mass production.
right, I agree. And so
Creating
that
cinema of discussion, you know?
that could be a thing here, but then we also see like your idea of time, like the power of time for him being, filmmaking, obviously literally stopping time, capturing it in however many frames you want to choose. I think that really is creativity overall. Like that can be applied. They even have here, I mean, he does have a discussion between him and Julia where she lists the power of artistry and then goes through every artist except filmmaker because I guess that was the one time where he didn't want to have it be so heavy-handed in your face there. But I think he does legitimately see all those different art forms in the same way, and so the power of time is not just applied to film, but
Of
to all
course.
creative pursuits.
I mean, obviously, you could zoom out and apply it to a lot of things. I'm just thinking specifically as he's writing this movie. I think the thing in his mind as he's writing it is specifically that idea of filmmaking. But of course, this can be zoomed out and applied to everything. Everything can be compared to uh, trying to marry the greatness of the past with the envisionment of the future and trying to get those two things to coincide. I think you can apply that to just about damn near everything. And I would agree with what Coppola is trying to say about marrying the ideas and trying to commit to it. I just don't think this film specifically convinces anybody else of that or says anything that like how many people are going to read between the lines like we are and understand what he's trying to say? Fucking nobody is.
You never know. Again, maybe it's
Nobody's
just
going
going
to
to
fucking get
spark
it, dude.
discussion and people talking about the movie, even if they hate it.
There's just so many
Basically,
things
is a
that are
utopia.
distracting about it that they're going to talk about those things instead of the important ideas that he's trying to talk about. Which why would you even make a movie with so many distractions if what you're talking about is something so big and abstract as this? Why would you make a movie with so many atrocious distractions and like filmmaking sins like of like terrible filming geography, atrocious editing, horrible use of pacing, terrible dialogue? Why would you be willing to include all of these things and just bad plot points that get dropped like halfway through the movie to just distract the viewer from thinking about the ideas that you're trying to get across in the first place? Seems counterintuitive in every way, as opposed to Apocalypse Now, which has these great ideas, and then also has these distractions, but they're married in such a way that you are briefly distracted at the time with what's going on in the actual plot of the story, but then he brings you back into the darker ideas that he's delving deep into as you go further and further into his subconscious, and those distractions become less and less because you're digging deeper into that memory. That doesn't happen here. You just have bonkers shit happening for no reason that just takes you completely out of the movie.
Right, and I would say, yeah, I wouldn't qualify any of those things as distractions. I mean, they're all in service of the ideas of the overall themes. So all those like detours that they take on their trip to Kurtz and Apocalypse Now, obviously they're all in one way or another servicing the themes and the ideas that he's trying to tackle about war and about morality and the darkness of the human soul and all that stuff. I would say he's trying to do something similar here with Megalopolis. Obviously, it's just not in any way as effective. But going back to my question there about inclusion of this particular subplot, the Virgin Teen Idol and the deepfake stuff, how do you square that with your interpretation here of this all being a reflection of Coppola's career and his insecurity around not being able to have left it in a better place than when he had found it?
I think it has to do with like the passing of the old guard and how there has been like a lot of people in the past who have been accused of inappropriate behavior or in general just the uh the unappreciation of like behaviors of that old guard that he grew up with, not necessarily saying that that behavior is tolerable, but trying to make commentary and saying that like if people do bad behavior, there's no reason that they should be completely eliminated from their career, that their catalog should be entirely disregarded, or that like lives should be ruined, which to a certain extent I don't disagree. I think there's obviously types of behavior that are inappropriate but don't necessarily cross the line of total social like abandonment and total like shunning of a person. And there are some examples of people who have committed behavior that are like cancelable and like should be condemned in society for the actions that you've done, especially given the power that you had. Like you should not be allowed to continue in your position that you are at. And I think a lot of people that are like opposed to cancel culture think that they're going to be canceled and that they aren't allowed to continue their careers if they say like just one wrong thing. And I think it's more about being more aware of what you're saying and how it affects people and trying to treat people with respect, not necessarily conditioning your behavior so that you're not yourself, but simply acting in a way that is respectful to the people that are around you. And I think a lot of people miss that idea in terms of cancel culture. And I just don't think people really I don't think canceled is really a thing. Like you either did something so atrocious that you are suffering the consequences of the actions you did, or there are just people online getting upset at you for something that you could just ignore. And I think the term cancel is just unnecessary at this point. So people who hang up on like cancel culture stuff, like these scenes in Megalopolis, I just think it's unnecessary commentary. I think it's not a problem that Coppola really has to worry about. I mean, he has exhibited some bad behavior on his sets, but I don't think it's anything that warrants his total like shunning in society. I think it's just like behavior he needs to work on in terms of personal boundaries with the people on his crew and the power dynamics he has with extras and people who are beneath him on sets, and realizing that certain actions he does might make people uncomfortable and that he shouldn't do those things. And I think those are things he can learn and he'll be fine. I don't think it's any reason to totally disregard him from society or to boycott his films over. But I think he would think that the society en masse is trying to do that to him and that like his film's being sabotaged because of those news articles. I mean, he's suing the people who made those articles, you know? He's trying to say that they like cost him business as a result.
About the on-set behavior stuff or about the trailers?
Both, isn't it?
Really,
Doesn't he have multiple lawsuits open?
there may or may not be. I don't know.
I guess I could
remember
fact check that right
seeing
now while you talk.
something
But
about
I just think it is like a silly thing to make commentary on, especially so lightly and so briefly in a movie that is about so many other fucking things.
Well, again, this is his last hurrah, so I think he wanted to throw it all out there.
He wanted to like make his point clear on a lot of topics. I get it. But fuck, man, did you make a bad movie as a result? Like, if you had just committed to saying one fucking nice one, if you had taken that $100 million fucking dollars and split it up into four $25 million movies where you spent a little bit of time on each topic, shit, maybe you make 4 pretty good movies as opposed to one shitty one.
Right. I mean, again, that's why, you know, that's why I think the interpretation that he's more looking at society as a whole and what his feelings are about the current state of it and what his hopes are for the future of it. Um, like him trying to include all this different stuff speaks to that. If he just wanted to get it all out there one final time, even though, yeah, picking any number of these and just dedicating a smaller project solely to that probably would have hopefully, made the scope of it and his grasp over the material a little bit stronger, but he just, yeah, too much that he wanted to comment on and discuss. I think another thing here of like the Shia LaBeouf subplot where he was getting that one random, it was a person from the marching band that like joined and then became a Nazi over the course of the thing, where he
Yeah,
has
what
like
the
that
fuck?
tattoo on his forehead of
Stands on a
a
Nazi
Nazi
tree
symbol,
stump, which looks
literally a
cool.
Nazi tree stump. Yeah, which is interesting imagery. But even something like
Unnecessary.
that,
Dude, I saw it and I laughed. Again, like, why? Because up until this
very
point,
on the nose.
they haven't really exhibited any Nazi type rhetoric. It just doesn't fit the characters at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to fact check, a couple of weeks ago, Francis Ford Coppola filed a suit against Variety about their July story that he exhibited misconduct on the set of Megalopolis
Mm.
about kissing extras and stuff.
There you go.
And in the suit, it labels him as a creative genius and says that others are jealous and therefore tell knowing and reckless falsehoods.
What a guy. Very humble. So yeah, I think that again, overall, a lot of this you can see again. Literally, he puts his name in there as Francis. Obviously, Caesar is a stand-in for him. I think a lot of it can be applied to filmmaking as a whole. But I think when you see stuff like that, the Nazi tree stump and that overall sort of commentary on Shia LaBeouf and that like populist movement, taking the disgruntled people who have legitimate grievances and then weaponizing them in a certain way, like clearly that's him trying to comment on the current political landscape, just
Yeah.
changing a few things here and there, making certain aesthetic choices for that movement a little more obvious, whereas flipping the entire actual rhetoric of it. So I think these things are him just again looking at society where it's at, again things like cancel culture, all that stuff, which
Yeah.
has been applied to him personally in some regards, but I think he's just trying to comment on the overall you know direction and trends that he has seen in society, while he still has a chance to. And in the end, the whole message he's trying to convey, of which honestly, I mean, yeah, when you get to the end of it, Megalopolis, when he does have that city built, and everyone's like chilling and Cicero and Caesar are able to shake hands, and the baby's there, and it's all looking good. And obviously, it's a very optimistic message. But again, the takeaway of that, if Megalon, which again is some random substance, we don't know exactly what created it, what it is supposed to be an analogy for, but we do know that through Adam Driver at that press conference thing is saying the utopia is if we have conversations and
It's like
dialogue.
that. Megalon is like the unspoken thing in Hollywood. I don't know what it is, but you got it. It's that like the magic sauce of like what makes shit work in Hollywood, you know?
Mm,
What is it? We don't know, but it works. That's Megalon. That's what it is. You're not supposed to know what it is, but he's got it.
interesting.
And then he doesn't have it. It's just stupid. It's just a stupid analogy.
He lost the time power, but Megalon, the substance, was always there that he was able to manipulate. But
Well, think about it.
and then she became the
We
muse,
watched
and
all
it
these
brought back.
movies. He's still got it. He just can't manipulate time in the way that he used to. You can't tell like a concise story in the way that he used to. But as a filmmaker, he's always had it, you know?
Mm,
This is the first movie that I think that I watched where I feel like his filmmaking capabilities were slipping.
really?
Up until here, I was like, it's been pretty fucking solid. Like as a filmmaker, his movies have been pretty good. Even Youth Without Youth was pretty good.
Again, I think there were like his key trademarks and all that stuff. Again, just his visual eye has always been great, even in elements of Youth Without Youth, elements in this for sure. I think he's nailed that.
I think this one's mid.
It's just
Mid
I
at
think there's a
best.
lot of again, there was just too much going on. It was too messy. He was again apparently he was stress eating for a long time, but he was also doing the same thing he had done like on Apocalypse Now, where he's like, well, there's a outline that I have here, and we're going to try and follow that, but we're going to make room for coming up with things here and there and improv and all this, and that probably contributed to a lot of the tonal inconsistencies. So yeah, I think it's a massive undertaking that he had here, grand scope, grand vision, It's just wasn't able to come together. So yeah, any other major thoughts, things you want to comment on Megalopolis?
I like the scene where Aubrey Plaza mounts Shia LaBeouf and he calls her Auntie Wow, and she's like seducing him and trying to say like, this is the plan. You're gonna go to John Voight's character and you're gonna get him to sign over the CEO, that make you an interim CEO position. And and Shia LaBeouf's just going, oh fuck.
Yeah, he just kept
I think
nonstop. He was just moaning and
I think
groaning
it
and
was
going
great.
crazy.
I thought that was really really funny. She just fully like sits on his face.
Yes, I
Aubrey
like when that
Plaza
happened. I
goes
was like,
crazy in this movie.
is this a body double? No, it's her. Like they tilt up and it's straight up her, and I'm like, wow,
It's
platinum.
insane. Quite
So
insane in this movie.
yeah. But yeah, any other thoughts? Any things you want to comment on?
It's not worth watching. I think
Wow, wow.
I think
I
this one is
think
not
it's
worth watching. I think Youth Without Youth is not worth watching, and I think One from the Heart is not worth watching. To everybody listening, if you're watching, and Dementia 13 is not worth watching. If you're going through his filmography of the ones we've talked about these last 4 episodes, those are the ones that I think you could skip and nobody would fault you for it. You're fine. The rest of them, though, The Rain People, uh, Finian's Rainbow, The Conversation, Dracula, and Apocalypse Now, must watches. You should watch all of those. But the other ones, drop it. Don't even bother.
I
Especially
guess
this one. Especially this one.
I would say Dementia 13. I could take it or leave it. I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But One from the Heart, I think people should watch, especially if you're doing what we did of like just trying to dig into Coppola's mind and everything like that.
Well, yeah,
His
if you're trying to do what we
trajectory as
did,
an
then you should
artist.
watch all of the movies we watched.
Yeah, but if you really want to get a nice snapshot, if we get the follow up to his great '70s run, see where it went wrong, but see how
Yeah,
again he was on his game, but
I'm not
just
disagreeing
got
with it.
away
I'm
from it.
saying that if you are just a casual moviegoer, or even like a moviegoer who wants to experience good films, I think you could like. There's only so many movies we as people can watch in our lifetimes. You can only watch so many, and of course, you and
Mhm.
I have dedicated a lot of time to watching movies, and we're going to continue to do that for the rest of our lives. But most people can't even do that. If I'm being completely honest, I think there are better movies that merit multiple rewatches. And these movies specifically don't even merit one watch. I don't even think so.
Wow. Yeah, I disagree.
Especially Megalopolis.
Youth
Like
Without
you can
Youth,
just not watch it.
you can skip for sure. But I would say Megalopolis, it's worthwhile. I would
No,
say it's just
it's
crazy.
not.
Get the bonkers, just get a group of people together, look at the insane
If you
stuff going
if
on
you wanna watch
screen,
it to like
trip
with your
out,
friends to like heckle
psilocybin,
it
big
and to
dimension out.
laugh, I think like in the same way that people watch The Room to just like shit on it and laugh together. If you want to do that for Megalopolis, that's fine. But that's not really watching a movie. I don't consider that watching a film. Like watching a movie is sitting down, not paying attention to anything else, focusing on the movie, being quiet, and like trying to understand it. That's what I consider watching a movie. If you're just trying to heckle like a piece of if you're trying to a science mystery theater 3000 it, mystery science
Mhm.
theater 3000 it, then you could do that for this movie, and this would be a good movie to do it to. Like it's already so bonkers and ridiculous and dumb. Go crazy. That's not really watching a movie though. Not to me.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely different approaches of watching a
Ryan,
movie.
if you invited me to watch a movie and I sat down and I just like talked and made jokes throughout the whole fucking thing, you'd be pissed.
Well, I would. It would have to be a
Because that's not
certain
watching a movie.
approach. If we were doing that, if anyone's talking in theaters, obviously that's unacceptable. If you're looking at your phone in theaters, obviously that's
If
unacceptable.
you said, "Hey, come over, watch this bad movie with me, and we're gonna heckle it,"
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
exactly.
But it's not
Well,
watching a
it's just a
movie.
different, yeah, like approach to watching it.
But I'm saying this movie is not merited like a genuine watch.
I think it is. I
No,
think
it's
we
not.
had a nice discussion here, trying to piece out
I think
what
my life would
what it
be
was.
no different, if not better, had I not watched this movie and talked about
It
it.
did not make your life worse. Come on now.
It would just be no different. I was not improved in any way by having
And
watched this movie
sometimes
and
that
talked
happens.
about it.
Does every single film, do you improve your life? Does your life change for the better dramatically because of every film that you watch?
No, but I think at the very least, I wouldn't have considered it a waste of my time, and I think this movie is a waste of my time.
Well, that's your opinion there. I
It's
think,
on par with House of Gucci. Do you remember the feeling walking out of the theater of House of Gucci when we went and saw that together? That's how I felt about
yeah,
this movie. I
I mean,
wanted to walk out.
That's intense. No, I think it's worthwhile on multiple fronts. Again, just seeing the last hoorah of a great filmmaker, a great American filmmaker, one who is desperately trying to put together all of his ideas
His
for the
last
last
great
few years
hoorah was Apollos.
has.
Now we can just leave it at that.
That's
I'm
crazy.
sorry.
I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, that's the masterpiece of all masterpieces, but this is his last effort at trying to create a masterpiece, and it is not successful. However, I think in its failures, there's a lot to gain from just entertainment, but also a lot of ideas in there that he's trying to make you think about, have you discuss. Again, I don't think they're executed in the film perfectly all the time, but I think they do create some interesting conversation, or at least just internal monologuing if you're trying to figure out what
Hmm.
some of these things meant, the bonkers choices that he had made. And then I think there's some visuals that, yes, are all in the trailer if you want to just watch those. But I think in context of the full film, those moments where, again, he just lets his visual style run wild, I think those are great. And again, maybe that's because I was seeing it in that IMAX screen, but to me,
Yeah,
those moments they gripped me. They were effective, and it was great to see.
yeah.
So,
I just think about I'm a young man and I've yet to like really start my filmmaking career and I think about it a lot and I think about how I want it to be. And
mm,
obviously it never will be exactly how I want it to be. And I think more about like the long-term goals of my career probably more than most people do and like where I want my career to end up. And every time I see something like this, especially and like with Ridley Scott with House of Gucci and Napoleon, when I think of like people who get older and commit to continuing what they want to do, and the quality decreases, and Tarantino talks about this a lot too, and the quality decreases, it like makes me sad and makes me aware that retirement and change are very, very good things. Not necessarily like completely giving up working in its entirety when you reach a certain age, but perhaps moving on from that art form to a different art form to simply try something new and to continue being a student at something. Once you've mastered something and you put out masterworks and you've put your name on something, I think leaving while you're on top is the most noblest choice to do. Which is why part of me is a little sad that like I'm very excited that Daniel Day Lewis is coming back to go back all the way back to the news. But I am a little sad. I hope he doesn't end his career on a more timid note. Whereas Phantom Thread was such a great send off because it was such a fantastic film and a fantastic performance. I just think to have the guts to say you're done way earlier than most people ever do, especially in the filmmaking industry when people work till they die. I think to have the guts to do that is like applaudable, and I wish Coppola had. I mean, I guess at this point, with Youth Without Youth and Twixt having been his last movies before this, it wasn't really ending on top. So it was worth another go, I guess. It's just he's reached a certain age where maybe I'm just ageist, I don't know, but I just feel like to continue being a student in life, you can't keep doing the same things you've just become amazing at. You need to like try something more new. And I guess he's trying new things in the sense that there's more CGI in this film and he's using newer filmmaking techniques. But I think a new art form itself, like if maybe Coppola tried to make a TV show or maybe wrote plays or books, something like that, just tried to expand his catalog of things outside of filmmaking, I think it would do him better to become a student once again. And I just don't think continuing in this path, it's not something I would do if I was in his shoes. It's not something I would do if I had a long career as a filmmaker. I would want to end early off, try to end at the height of my career if I could, and transition myself into newer art forms or to different art forms. I just wouldn't want to commit to being a filmmaker until I die like that.
mm,
Just I more often than not, 98% of the time see such a steep drop off in quality as filmmakers like reach those 70s and 80s in age.
I mean, I don't know how many are still actively working. Again, many of them are just the greats like Scott and Coppola here, but Scorsese and Spielberg are also still doing that, and they're pumping out great work. So,
Sometimes.
no, all the time. What do you mean?
Sometimes.
In what way? I mean, those
Did you
filmmakers
think The
particularly,
Post
or
was really that good?
I've not seen The Post.
Did you think The Irishman and Killers of the Flower Moon were like filmmaking standouts?
they were not filmmaking standouts, but I don't think you need to have, I mean,
I think in terms of like an
generational
older
redefining work.
filmmaker making films, those are definitely the better examples. I would agree. I still just
Mhm.
think at a certain point, I think at a certain point they are given so much leeway because they are legends that they're no longer put in a box. And when you have no limitations and you're free to do whatever you want, and this is a great example of that. Coppola financed the whole fucking movie himself. He has nobody telling him no. He can do whatever he wants, and when you're not put in that box, I feel like having no limitations is more of a hindrance than a like recipe for success. I've always felt that way. I think being put in a box is the best thing that can happen to a creative person.
I think certain restrictions force you to flex your creative muscles in ways that produce better
Yes.
work for sure. However, I don't think it's like a rule of thumb where if you are able to fund your own work and create your own thing and not,
I think there are
people
people
bringing
who
down your
fund
necks,
their own
I think that's
work,
okay.
but they impose limitations on themselves that puts them in a box. Like M. Night Shyamalan limiting his budgets on his own self-funded films puts him in a box where I think he has the ability to. And I'm not saying his films are always successful. I haven't seen a lot of his self-funded works, and I've heard very mid things about them. But I think being put in a box is something that is at least getting him to flex those creative muscles, like you were saying. And I think Split is an example of like a successful version of that. And there's not a lot of other self-funded filmmakers I can give examples for. I mean, there's A24 independent films where you can give examples like that, but most of what we watch, especially nowadays, are studio-based projects.
Very true. I think it's interesting as well that Coppola, when he went into his first semi-retirement, he had mentioned that he wanted to be a student again of film. He never wanted to lean too much into the idea that he had mastered it all.
Hmm.
And we saw that, going to Youth Without Youth, he switched to digital. I believe those other films of his that followed up, Twixt and Tetro, were also on digital, and this one as well, of course, like incorporating more CGI. I don't know that any of his prior works
Yeah, he
had
definitely
done
leans
this.
into newer filmmaking technologies,
Yeah, he
which
was
I think
leaning
is
to the idea of like being a student and trying to find
yeah,
new ways to
which I think is
break ground
good.
on this art form that he loves. And so I think that's great. And yeah, obviously, it was unsuccessful here, but as we looked at his career, I mean, after the highs of the 70s, he was never able to quite match that. So he would have had to give up basically in 1979 and then for 5 decades not produce any work. And even though a lot of them were not well received, I'm sure a lot of them were not ones that he loved making if they were just studio projects. But I'm sure throughout those many decades, I mean, there were a lot of work that he was proud to have been a part of and glad that he put out into the world, even if they didn't redefine the art form and become the ultimate classics like his earlier work. I think it's okay to still pursue the art form that you love and put out work that, while it may not reach the heights of your previous things, which by the way is on some level going to be somewhat subjective, because there's people that might enjoy some things he did in the 80s and some things in the 90s, of like where is the right point to get out as far as a career and on top. But I think, yeah, I think it's noble and admirable that he kept going. He tried his hardest to create something that uh, would be this, like we said, last hurrah and really be meaningful. Didn't quite work unfortunately for him, but I think the pursuit of that in and of itself, him having this great singular expression of who he is, his artistic ideas, his style, all of that, I think it's worthwhile. And so anyone who is listening to this podcast, it's not just going to be some casual movie watcher. You must, in some way, enjoy film. And so I would
I don't
say,
think that's
go
true.
see it. Go see it. You think casuals are watching this?
I think they could, yeah. I think it's possible.
Well, if you are, then I would say go ahead and give this a shot. It may not be the best film you ever see,
Let's
but
give it.
for me at least, it was entertaining. It was worthwhile, and yeah, it was a great way to connect with this filmmaker in his last outing. So
I
there
think
we
that's a
go,
beautiful way to put it, Ryan, but I just wholeheartedly disagree. Skip it.
and that's fair.
Yeah.
That's
And
two
last bit
opinions.
to talk about. Not this has any kind of meaning in any way or matters even slightly. But do you think the film will be nominated for any Oscars?
No,
Not a single one.
no,
Not even technicals.
no.
I agree.
Now for the other question, which one of us is Caesar and which one of us is Cicero? I'm kidding.
I think I'm definitely
I think that's
Cicero.
I think that's so funny to.
I think I would totally frame you for the murder of your wife without any kind of reason whatsoever, because you have a
Yeah.
slight disagreement about city policy.
And in response to that, I will be marrying your wife and having a kid.
My wife, my
Oh, your
daughter.
daughter. I'm coming for them all, okay? And I'll name them
Whoa,
Francis.
you're coming for all
Only
the
if they're a boy.
ladies.
Which, by the way, that baby at the end was not a boy, so it was not named Francis.
Yep, it
Crazy.
was named Sonny after his dead wife.
It all comes together. All right. How many megalons out of 5?
I'm giving it 1.
Crazy. A 1.
I was gonna give it a
Mm,
half, but I'm gonna give it a 1 just because some of the shots are pretty. But I'll give it a 1.
nice. I'm giving it a 2.5
That's
megalons out of.
way too fucking high, Ryan, and you know it.
Yeah, I know. I think it.
That's
This is a
ridiculous.
film that I would watch again at some point. Not anytime
Oh
soon, but it's a
fucking
film that
shit!
I would watch again. I would not probably watch One from the Heart. I would not watch Dracula. I didn't even watch You Without You the first time. So
You're crazy.
this is a film that I would watch again. Again, we've talked through the whole thing here. I think it does have merit. I think it's an entertaining watch. Give yourself over to the bonkerness, to how gonzo Coppola is. He's bringing you into his world. You just got to go on that ride.
It's virtually unwatchable.
I don't think that's true. You know that's not true. Come on.
It is. It is a tough watch. I checked my phone multiple times to see what time it was in a theater. I pulled out my phone in a theater to look at it to see what time it was because I wanted to go home so bad.
Rough.
It was up there in terms of badness with House of Gucci, as those are probably 2 of the worst movies I've ever seen in theaters.
Wow.
Absolutely
Crazy.
horrible. Anyway, that's all the time we have. That concludes our month of Coppola. Kind of ending on a bit of a sad note. Unfortunately, we can't title the episode "The Redemption of Francis Ford Coppola." It'll just have to be the return. If you'd
Alas.
like to give your thoughts on the show, you can email us at theboxofficeshowpod@gmail.com.
Our main title theme for the show is Sundown by Joseph McDade.
And if you like the show, please give us 5 stars on whatever podcast app you're listening to, and be sure to tune in next week. Have a great rest of your day.
Don't let the now destroy the forever. Go back to the club.
Fuck off.